I never thought the day would come when my daughter would stand beside the man she chose, look at the one thing that carried our family through its hardest winters, and call it nothing more than a burden. To me, Juniper, the mare I sacrificed years of sweat and comfort to bring home, was the living proof that love could take shape in something you could touch, brush, and hold steady through storms. To them, however, she was just a way to trade responsibility for a vacation ticket, a handful of cash, an escape to a beach that would never mean as much as the earth beneath their feet. That betrayal, when it finally unfolded, cut deeper than I ever thought my daughter's choices could. But to understand why, you have to know how it began, and why that horse was never just a horse. There are people who think a gift is measured only by how much it costs, but I learned long ago that the worth of a gift is found in the hours you gave up to make it possible, in the quiet sacrifices you never announce, in the way you watch the face of the one you love as they hold it for the first time. Juniper was not simply a purchase, she was the sum of every overtime shift I worked, every comfort I set aside, every small dream I let go of so that my daughter could have something bigger than herself. I didn't find her in glossy brochures with perfect horses posed beneath bright spotlights. I found her behind a sagging fence at the edge of the county, her coat dull, her mane tangled, her eyes steady in a way that made me stop and believe she had been waiting for us. The woman selling her said there wasn't much to brag about, no ribbons, no trophies, but she was patient, honest, and she would stand by a girl even when the world turned cruel. I counted out the money on a scarred kitchen table, money I had gathered by selling the half-finished boat I once dreamed of sailing, by giving up the truck I had longed to restore, by postponing repairs that I knew would catch up to me one day. Every dollar was a piece of me, but I let it go, because sometimes love is measured not in what you keep but in what you are willing to surrender. When the trailer doors opened at our farm, Emily ran barefoot across the yard, her hair loose and wild, her eyes wide as if she had just stepped into a dream. She pressed her cheek against the mare's neck and whispered the name Juniper, as though she were sealing a promise into the air. That name became a cornerstone in our lives. It wasn't just a word. It was a reminder that what we build with love and sacrifice can take shape in something real, something breathing, something that will stand with us through seasons and storms. The barn changed after that day. Silence gave way to the scrape of curry combs, the clink of water buckets, the rhythm of hoofbeats echoing against wooden walls. Emily woke before the sun, pulling on her boots without complaint, her voice humming quietly as she brushed Juniper's mane until it shone. She practiced balance until her legs trembled, she read books aloud in the lantern light, insisting the mare listen more carefully when words filled the air. Evenings became sacred, sharing apples, weaving braids before small shows, laughing together in the rain when all we had for shelter was a tarp pulled tight over our shoulders. Neighbors shook their heads, called me foolish. They said no horse was worth the bills I had set aside, the furnace that groaned, the well pump I prayed would last another year. They measured worth in numbers, but I measured it in my daughter's laughter carried on the wind, in the strength growing inside her as she learned what responsibility really meant. She showed in small competitions, sometimes coming home with ribbons, sometimes with only dust and sweat, but Juniper lowered her head into her arms no matter the outcome. The mare reminded her that value isn't pinned to colors on a bridle, but found in the daily act of showing up, again and again, even when it hurts. I thought nothing could shake that bond. I thought what we had built was too strong to be undone by anyone. But then Tyler came into her life. He wasn't cruel, not in any obvious way. But from the first moment, I noticed the way his eyes skimmed over the barn, not with interest but with indifference, as though it were a painting on someone else's wall. His shoes were too clean for mud, his hands never seemed to know where to place themselves when asked to help with chores, and when Emily spoke about long rides at dusk, his smile carried a faint edge of amusement, as though it were charming but childish. He never called Juniper by name, he said. "Your pet," dismissing her as a hobby rather than the living heart of our family's sacrifices. Still, Emily loved him. And because she loved him, I tried to open the gate rather than build a wall. I told myself love could stretch to include him. I told myself he might learn. But deep in my chest, unease settled like a shadow. At their wedding, beneath strings of lights hung across our pasture, I watched my daughter glow in lace and boots, her laughter brighter than the bulbs that swayed in the wind. Pride filled me, yes, but so did something colder, because when I stepped away to fetch ice from the kitchen, I overheard Tyler joking with a cousin on the porch. His words were casual, careless. "That horse's upkeep could pay for 2 tickets to Cancun." He laughed, adding, "A week on the beach beats shoveling stalls any day." I froze. My hand gripped the counter until my knuckles whitened. To him, Juniper wasn't a promise, a sacrifice, a piece of my very life handed into Emily's keeping. She was a price tag, an inconvenience, an obstacle to something easy. And though I told myself not to overreact, though I whispered that it was only a joke, deep down I knew a storm was coming. There comes a moment when silence is no longer strength but surrender, when holding back in the name of peace feels less like patience, and more like watching the walls of your own home collapse while you stand still, hoping someone else will notice. For me, that moment came the day Emily stood in the kitchen, her hand resting on Tyler's shoulder, and asked me, with eyes that would not quite meet mine, whether I had ever considered selling Juniper. The words landed like a stone dropped into deep water. Not because I hadn't feared it, not because Tyler hadn't hinted at it often enough, but because it came from her lips, hesitant and trembling, as though she had already been rehearsing the idea in her mind. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Emily, you know why I bought her. You know what she means." She shifted, uneasy, caught between love for me and the pull of her husband's logic. "I do, Dad, I do, but things are tight. Tyler thinks." And there it was. Tyler thinks. Always Tyler thinks. I looked at my daughter and saw the tug-of-war within her, the girl who once whispered secrets into Juniper's mane now caught in the gravity of someone who measured worth in dollars and destinations. I didn't shout. I didn't slam my fist. Instead, I said, almost too softly, "Juniper is not just a horse. She is the years I gave up so you could believe in yourself. She is the reason you stood taller when life tried to bend you." Selling her would be selling me. Emily's eyes filled, but she didn't answer. She turned, muttered something about needing to think, and left the room. Tyler followed her, smirking faintly as though he had won ground. I stood alone, the hum of the refrigerator louder than any argument. After that, the distance between us grew like cracks in dry earth. Emily came to the barn less often, her visits brief, her affections strained. Sometimes she brushed Juniper absent-mindedly, her phone glowing in her other hand. Other times she didn't come at all, and I found myself taking over her routines, whispering promises into the mare's ears that I wasn't sure I could keep. One evening, as the sun bled across the horizon, Tyler confronted me directly. He leaned against the barn door, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "You know, sir," he said, his voice dripping with forced politeness, "Emily and I could use the money. That horse eats through hundreds every month. Boarding fees, vet bills, hey, it's not sustainable. Don't you want your daughter to have a better life than this?" I turned slowly, meeting his gaze. "A better life doesn't come from selling the things that make us whole." He laughed, a short, humorless sound. "That's the problem. You're stuck in the past, clinging to sentiment. Emily deserves freedom. Fun. Not to be chained down by your symbol of sacrifice." I felt my hands curl into fists, but I forced myself to stay still. "You don't understand because you never worked for something you couldn't replace. Juniper isn't a chain. She's a promise." His smirk faltered, just for a moment, but he recovered quickly. "We'll see how long promises pay the bills." From that night on, I knew he wouldn't stop. He wasn't asking, he was waiting for Emily to break, to side with him, to sign away what I had given. And every day that passed, I feared more that she might. The breaking point came weeks later. I came home early from the hardware store, the receipt for barn repairs folded in my pocket, only to hear voices drifting from the barn. I paused outside, my breath caught. Emily's voice was low, strained. "Tyler, please stop pushing. You don't understand, she's part of me." His reply cut like glass. She's part of your father, not you. You're grown now, Emily. You don't need to keep living in his shadow. Sell the horse. Start fresh with me. We can use the money for something real. Something real. As if years of sweat, sacrifice, and devotion were nothing but illusions. Emily didn't answer right away. The silence that followed felt endless, and I realized with a sickening weight that she was hesitating. Not refusing. Not defending. Just hesitating. I backed away before they could see me, the taste of betrayal bitter in my mouth. For the first time, I felt the ground beneath me shift. It wasn't just about Juniper anymore. It was about my daughter being pulled from me, inch, by someone who could never understand the cost of love. That night, as I fed Juniper an apple slice, her warm breath brushing against my palm, I whispered words I had never said aloud before. If they try to take you from me, I don't know what I'll do. There is nothing more painful than watching someone you love weigh your sacrifices on a scale and consider trading them for comfort. It is not the shouting that breaks you, not the arguments that leave doors shaking in their frames, but the quiet way hesitation creeps into the eyes of the child you raised, the child who once clung to you for guidance but now listens to another voice, a voice that speaks of beaches and freedom while dismissing the blood and sweat that built her foundation. The tension in our house grew unbearable. Meals became silent, each of us orbiting our own unspoken thoughts. Emily avoided eye contact, as though afraid of what she might see reflected in mine. Tyler, on the other hand, grew bolder, his words sharper, his tone more confident. It was as if he believed the battle was already won, and all that remained was the formality of Emily admitting it. One evening, over dinner, Tyler finally said it outright. "We've been thinking," he began, his fork clinking against his plate, "about selling Juniper. It's the only sensible choice." Emily flinched, but she didn't speak. My chest tightened. I put my fork down and stared at him. "We? Or you?" He smirked, leaning back. "Both. Emily knows it's unreasonable to keep pouring money into that horse. We could take a vacation, maybe even put a down payment on something bigger than this old place. Don't you want her to have more than this?" His hand gestured vaguely at the kitchen, the farmhouse, the life I had built brick by brick. Emily shifted uncomfortably. "Tyler, maybe not now," she began, but he cut her off. "Why not now? Your dad has had his turn. It's time you think about us." The words stung, sharp and deliberate. Your dad has had his turn. As though love and sacrifice were seasons that expired, as though family loyalty could be traded in when it became inconvenient. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "Juniper is not for sale. Not now, not ever. She is more than a horse. She is family." Tyler rolled his eyes. "You keep saying that, but she's not a person. She's an expense. And sooner or later, Emily will realize that." I looked at my daughter then, desperate for her to speak, to defend the bond we had built, to remind me she still understood. But her lips trembled, and the silence between us said more than words ever could. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the barn with Juniper, the lantern casting long shadows across the hay. She nudged my shoulder gently, as if sensing the storm raging inside me. I thought of all the nights Emily had fallen asleep against this very mare, of the laughter that once filled these walls. Now, the silence was heavy, suffocating. The days that followed blurred together, each one carrying more distance between me and my daughter. She stopped coming to the barn altogether, leaving me to care for Juniper alone. When I asked her why, she muttered excuses, too tired, too busy, but I knew the truth. It was easier for her to avoid the barn than to face the war waging inside her heart. Then came the moment I had dreaded. One afternoon, I found Emily and Tyler standing by the paddock, a man I didn't recognize beside them. He wore polished boots and carried a measuring stick, his eyes scanning Juniper like she was merchandise on display. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice sharp. Emily turned, guilt flooding her face. "Dad, it's not what you think." But Tyler cut in smoothly. "It's exactly what you think. We're just getting an appraisal. Nothing final. Rage surged through me. Without my permission? Without even telling me? Tyler shrugged. She's Emily's horse. Isn't that right? Emily's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her silence was an answer I never thought I'd hear. The appraiser made notes, ran his hands over Juniper's legs, lifted her hooves. Juniper shifted uneasily, ears flicking back, as if she knew she was being reduced to numbers and weight. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. When the man finally left, promising to send an estimate, I turned to my daughter. Emily, I said, my voice breaking, do you even remember the day I brought her home? Do you remember what she meant to you? Her eyes filled with tears, but she whispered, I do. But things are different now. Different. That word sliced deeper than any blade. Different meant Tyler's voice louder than mine, meant beaches more tempting than barns, meant promises fading under the weight of convenience. I walked away before she could see me break, but in the quiet of the barn that night, as Juniper laid her head against my chest, I knew something had to change. I could not stand by while my daughter sold away the heart of our family. And though I didn't yet know how, I swore under my breath that I would not let it happen. Some storms arrive with thunder and lightning, others move in silently, settling over you like a weight until you cannot breathe. By the time the appraisal papers arrived in the mailbox, I knew the storm had reached its peak. The number written neatly on the page was less than what Juniper was worth, but the insult wasn't in the figure, it was in the fact that my daughter had agreed to it at all. I held the paper in my hands, my pulse steady not with calm but with clarity. I had begged, argued, reasoned, but now I understood, words would no longer protect what I loved. Action would. That evening, I invited Emily and Tyler to sit at the kitchen table. The same table where years ago I had counted out the money that bought Juniper's freedom. I placed the appraisal letter between us and looked at Emily. You've made your decision, I said quietly. Now let me make mine. Emily's hands trembled as she reached for the paper, but Tyler snatched it up instead, a satisfied grin spreading across his face. Finally, he said, you're coming around. This is the right choice. I met his gaze without flinching. No. This is the end of my patience. Juniper isn't leaving this farm. Not now, not ever. Emily's eyes widened. Dad. I raised my hand gently, not to silence her, but to keep myself steady. I gave her to you as a gift, Emily. But I realize now I never told you the full truth. She isn't just yours. She's ours. She carries both of us, my sacrifices and your childhood. If you sell her, you're not just selling a horse. You're selling me, piece by piece. Tyler scoffed. That's dramatic. She's an animal. You can buy another one if you really want. I leaned forward, my voice low, controlled. You can't buy back years of overtime, or the boat I sold, or the repairs I put off so that she could be here. You can't buy back the nights Emily spent singing to her in the lantern light, or the mornings she woke before dawn just to ride. No amount of money can replace what Juniper is. And I will not stand by while you try. Emily's face crumpled. For the first time in months, I saw the girl she had been, torn between loyalty and love, between ease and meaning. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Tyler's smile faltered. So what? You'll just forbid it? You can't stop her. She's an adult. I sat back slowly. You're right. I can't stop her. But I can take back what's mine. Silence fell heavy. I pulled a folded document from my jacket pocket and slid it across the table. The deed to the farm. The mortgage. The land. You think you can make choices here, but you've forgotten whose name is written at the bottom of every page. If Juniper goes, so do you. I won't pay for a roof over the head of a man who sees my life's work as disposable. Emily gasped. Tyler's face drained of color. You wouldn't. He spat. I looked at Emily, not him. I would. Because love is not meant to be trampled under convenience. Because family is not meant to be bargained away for beaches and cars. And because the day I bought Juniper, I swore she would never again be treated as something replaceable. I keep my promises. The room pulsed with tension. Finally, Tyler shoved his chair back, muttering curses under his breath as he stormed out the door. Emily stayed behind, her tears spilling freely now. Dad, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I forgot what she really means. I reached across the table, took her hand gently. It's not too late to remember. That night, Emily came back to the barn. For the first time in months, she brushed Juniper with steady hands, whispering apologies into the mare's mane. I stood in the shadows, letting her find her way back, letting her realize that some promises are too sacred to be broken. Tyler never returned to the subject of selling Juniper. In fact, after that night, he never looked at the mare again, his indifference replaced with quiet resentment. But Emily changed. Slowly, she began to return to the rhythm of the barn, to the steady loyalty Juniper had always offered her. And though nothing could erase the cracks entirely, the bond we rebuilt was forged with the understanding that sacrifice is not weakness, it is love in its purest form. In the end, the storm did not destroy us. It revealed who we were. And though the silence between us will never be as light as it once was, it carries a truth that can never again be ignored. Some gifts are not meant to be sold. Some gifts are meant to be kept, no matter the cost.